10 years since the powerful investment bank Lehman Brothers filed for bankruptcy. In the days that followed, global financial markets lost 60% of their value. Global economy contracted by 5%. An estimated 8.8 million jobs were lost, and $19 trillion of household wealth was wiped out. Why didn't anyone serve jail term for such losses? Is the world any safer now? And what did it feel to be at the helm of policy making in those dizzy days? In our series, Lehman Crisis 10 Years On, we speak to the men who mattered in 2008, here in India and abroad, to get answers to some of these questions. I have with me Dr. YV Reddy, former Reserve Bank of India governor, who finished his term just 10 days before the Lehman bankruptcy. Dr. Reddy, thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Thank you.
So before I let you speak, I want to tell you an anecdote which you may or may not remember. Sometime in, I think, March or April 2008, you suddenly called a few of us business journalists. RBI called us with about 1 hour's notice. That was the first time when RBI did not give us any tea or biscuits at the press conference. We were just made to sit in a room. You rushed in and you spoke to us for exactly 5 minutes. You said bad things are going to happen, very bad things. Warn people that the crisis is just beginning. That was the first time we got a sense of something bad is going to happen. But we still didn't realize that, the market, the Sensex would crash from 21,000 all the way to 7,000. What made you call us and warn us? When did you smell that 2008 is a bad year?
I'll do a bit of history. Actually, I became sensitive to the impact of global factors on a domestic economy when I was ED in the IMF.
When you were ED in the IMF, that is 2002?
To 2003, I saw the suffering of Turkey, Argentina, Brazil, Mexico.
Okay.
So therefore, from then on, I felt that one of the most important things for emerging market economies is to be very conscious of the risks from the global economy.
Okay.
And this, after I joined as governor, somewhere around 2000, in a couple of years, I realized that at EMIS as a whole, there are global imbalances and they should be warned. So actually, I gave a talk in Paris on the subject. So
in 2005?
2005.
Okay.
Banque de France.
Okay.
So the global imbalances and impact on emerging market economies.
Okay. Okay.
And then, so that's when I introduced the concept of national balance sheets. And now corporate financial sector can be over-leveraged, and India and some of the emerging market economies are not. So one is the sensitivity. Second is a feeling of discomfort about what is happening. Even in 2005, it's a slight discomfort.
Okay.
And I think by 2006, again in September 2006, I said that there is excess liquidity, and I think the word I used is there a dark future or something like that.
Okay. No, I remember you said India, in one of the monetary policies, maybe late 2007 or early 2008, maybe January 2008, is India overheating? You made that remark.
No, that was essentially that was essentially the Indian phenomena.
Okay.
But partly because it was the global economy, global capital flows are pushing us.
Okay.
It's overheating is happening also because
we had a flood of flows.
Yes, so that was happening. But
when did you guess? I mean, you must be meeting a lot of central bankers at BIS or in other fora. At what point were global central bankers uncomfortable about the imbalance?
I would say in 2007, when the housing bubble came, and Freddie Mac,
Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac.
And when they started getting into trouble, and when I was discussing with the governors of the central banks, I sensed, the advanced economists, and we used to meet often, I sensed that they were worried that there is a problem, and they are worried that they'll make a policy mistake by doing something about it. Both from an ideology point of view. So but I could see that. But my problem was not so much their problem. What was their problem, but how did the result affect me?
Okay. But when did you get the sense?
But I got a definite feeling that something is going to seriously happen soon after this housing problem came in 2007, by 2007 end. And I felt that we have to be prepared. And I gave a speech, and this is the background perhaps for my warning you. On 3rd January 2008, I spent 3-4 hours on 2 sentences. How to say that something very bad is going to happen, the capital flows may go back, and we should be prepared for that. So internally we got prepared for it, but that communication nobody picked up. Nobody picked up.
Yeah, January 2008, I think it was a speech in Hyderabad.
Yes.
No, nobody us understood.
Up. And so I was struggling how to tell, but not inject fear or something like that. But anyway,
how did you prepare in 2008? How did you prepare the Indian economy? I remember that there was a lot of pressure because the Fed had cut rates a couple of times. In January of 2008, there was pressure on you to cut rates, but you refused. From Jan to June, how were you preparing for the crisis?
I wouldn't say Jan to June as such, but the other problem which we seldom notice is that the time when the oil prices were shooting up.
Yes.
Very high
150,
oil prices.
yes.
Very high oil prices. That's one problem, one issue. And to face it, we required more capital flows. And people were keen to get that. So it's a complex factor. And also, in the country, politically and ideologically, they never imagined like having anything like excess capital flows, excess growth, overheating.
Yes, we were unprepared.
So it was a battle of thinking, battle of ideology, not just like the Government of India or Reserve Bank of India. But fortunately, I think we had Prime Minister, Finance Minister, others who could at least, they didn't agree, but they allowed us to talk. And but let me tell you where I was when I was almost sure that it would happen is by June, July 2008. And that's where in Manchester I simply said that at that time we used to call it turbulence.
Yes.
It was turbulence.
Financial turbulence.
Financial turbulence. So I said that financial turbulence will become a crisis.
Yes.
So I think by June, July, I felt that.
Yeah, our inflation hit double digits in July. Yes. And then I remember Dr. Subbarao was the finance secretary, and he said monetary policy is the first line of defense. And the next time you raised rates to 9%.
At that time, actually, 2 steps. One step, a few months before, I didn't want to raise, saying that there isn't enough. But in the next round, and I had to raise.
Yes.
Though I didn't want, but next time I said you have to continue. She wants to start a process. There's no point in doing it once and getting it back.
Yeah. Okay, so let me come to the way India reacted. Does it look like India overreacted? Everybody cut rates. So even we have to bring our rates down to, 1% and 2%. Did we overreact? We went down in repo rate all the way to 3/4.
I think at that point of time, we wanted to be perhaps more careful and not, so in some senses I would say that in such a crisis, overreacting is better than underreacting.
Okay.
But that's the beginning.
Yes.
But very quickly it should have been possible to assess that we're not that much affected or whatever it is. But even when the reality of the extent of damage was evident, I think we found it convenient to continue. So on all 3 fronts, that monetary fiscal policy, monetary policy, regulatory forbearance, all 3 of them in retrospect, I think they were excessive, and that's secondly, they're prolonged, and they're uncoordinated.
Okay, yeah, uncoordinated. Let me remind you of another advice you gave me. This time you were not governor. This was, I think, early 2009. I'm not very sure, or maybe late 2008, December. We met at some press conference where you were also present, some event, maybe Reserve Bank event. And you said, can you stop calling it a crisis? We are not in a crisis. The more you use the word crisis, the more the government will blow up the fiscal deficit, and they will be happy to do it because they are going into elections in 3 months. So, you clearly said that the government will blow the fiscal deficit. You could see it at that time that the fisc will overreact more to its advantage because they were going into elections.
See, I think all research has shown, apart from my own practical experience, that just before the elections, the government expenditure shoots up.
Yes.
And now if you give an intellectual excuse to do that, and that to a global factor, they'll just lap it up. And by then, I think indirectly, perhaps what I was trying to hint was that we were too keen to fall in line with the global trend rather than accept that we were not that badly affected. So that was an illustration, but overall also, I think we did pay a price a little later, of course.
Okay, that's what I wanted to come to. Would you say that the NPA crisis and the balance of payments crisis, first the balance of payments crisis of 2013, and then the NPA crisis, which is currently underway, is to some extent, our sequel to the global crisis?
Well, let me put it this way. There was a problem of everything delayed, let me put it this way. First, there was excessive regulatory forbearance. Forbearance. It was excessive to start with. Second, it was prolonged. Three, when it had to be recognized, there was delayed recognition. There was a delayed recognition.
Of the NPAs.
Of the NPAs.
Okay.
And so when the recognition came, it had already been accumulated. So whenever in the case of NPAs, each year you get accumulated. Imagine for 4 or 5 years, NPAs accumulated are shown in 1 year. So actually the NPA numbers which you see give an exaggerated picture because that they really accumulated NPAs.
It should have been divided by 5 years.
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, even more, because penalty will...
But looks like India was not the only one which went into excess monetary, fiscal and regulatory excesses. It looks like even China, other emerging markets also seem to have done that.
No, I think if I am not mistaken, the other economies, they got into trouble subsequently more due to the commodity prices.
Okay.
Not so much on the
monetary and fiscal excesses.
Yeah, not so much on the...
All right, so I want to look at cures now. We need to take a commercial break, but I want to come back and discuss whether the global monetary and financial system has found enough cures for the imbalances that caused the Lehman crisis. We are back in a minute.